Welcome into Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, we have another crossover. I cross over with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres as we preview an important series between the Phillies and the Padres at Citizens Bank Park. All of that in today's Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of not just the Locked On Padres podcast, but also the Locked On Phillies podcast. I am being joined by the host of Locked On Phillies, Connor Thomas. My first time talking to you, mate. We're going to be talking Padres and Phillies, of course. This upcoming series is going to be fun, but most importantly, I got to ask, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Javi. How about yourself, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I mean, both of our teams coming off of really fun developments, fun series wins, if I'm not mistaken. You guys, thank you. I just want to thank you, first of all, for taking down the wackest team, dare I say, in baseball. I mean, in a lot of variety of ways. No bias.
I didn't see it coming. I definitely didn't see it coming, but I'm absolutely happy to do that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You didn't see it coming. I imagine that's because you had a nightmare of a series against the New York Mets and a lot of just really miscues and bullpen stuff and that defense and whatnot. Just really quickly, just state, what is the current state of the Philadelphia Phillies? Because I know Philadelphia sports in general, just in chaos right now. Shout out to the 76ers.
Yeah.
But what's going on with the Phillies? Anything kind of jumping out to you immediately before we get in more in depth?
Yeah, so here's the thing with the Phillies. It's been weird, right? So the team actually hasn't been all that bad as the fan base would make them out to be. The issue is, right, you're in a 10-year playoff drought, and then you go out and you go into the luxury tax for the first time in franchise history when you bring in Nick Castellanos, in addition to signing Kyle Schwarber, adding some bullpen help with some veteran guys like Brad Hand and George Familia. And you get that whole offseason like, okay, the fans see you make the big moves. They expect you to come out and, okay, you're going to win like 20 of your first 25 games. That doesn't happen for anybody. So it's kind of been that expectation of like, they're underachieving because we had huge expectations, but they really haven't been. It's been a slightly slower start. But in all of their games leading up to this series with the Dodgers, and even leading up to this West Coast trip with the Mariners with a series that they just won earlier in the week, they're like parts of the team have been running all the way through. Like the offenses look good in games. The starting pitching has looked really good in games. The bullpen has looked really good in games. So they haven't put it all together. And this road trip is the first time this season where they've really put it all together. So I haven't been worried because I know I've seen parts of the team succeed. And I'm like, okay, they got the talent level. They have the ability. It's just got to all mesh together. But the fan base has been a little antsy, I'll say, because they've been waiting to see it come together. Yeah, they really have.
Philadelphia? No.
Yeah, right? Believe it or not. We've already had calls for like Joe Girardi's job, which honestly,
Philadelphia.
Yeah, honestly, I've been slightly a part of, considering how he's handled the bullpen and some decisions he's made, and them not renewing his contract this offseason. But like, it was a rough start, and now it seems like they're settling into what we thought this team was going to be, which is a really, really good offensive team and a team that they're going to have to hit their way into wins, and they've been doing it on their West Coast swing.
Yeah, I actually wrote for Just Baseball. For people who are familiar with my podcast, they know the website. Great website. One of my recent articles I wrote about was the top 5 like easiest teams to root for, and I actually put the Phillies on there because I just find it so much fun that they were like, so we have a bad defense and we have some bullpen problems and weird starting pitching. We're going to add more offense. Screw all of your numbers. We're going to slap the ball. We're going to win by football scores. We don't care. There's a possibility that this is like the most fun 88, 89. Hey, if things work out, obviously higher than that type of team where they're just winning games by a score of 7-5 every single time, right? Because of the negative defense of both Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber, obviously last year, among the worst at the position and defensive runs saved and outs above average. But they signed both of them and they're like, screw it. Let's just have MVP Bryce Harper. You still have JT Realmuto. Segura is just such a solid hitter. Very secretly, actually, too.
Yeah,
It feels
right.
like just for the past, like, you kind of know what you're going to get. And while it's not necessarily a guy who's going to give you 7 WAR every year, he just hits like 290, 300, decent on base stuff, and gets you hits. And he's done that every year for a while now. So very underrated, I think, in Gene Segura, someone the Padres will have to look out for. But yeah, I think that the Phillies, they're definitely not as top loaded as maybe in past years where it was just Harper and JT. And then you were like, oh my God, what else do we have? This is going to be a really telling series because the Padres are the other way around, where their team is very starting pitching bent.
Yeah.
They're going to have Mike Clevenger, Yu Darvish in this series, and Blake Snell returning to make his season debut, as well as a bunch of other guys, while their hitting has been carried by, I know, Connor, you might not be familiar with this, a bit on my podcast is I do not name by name the person who plays first base for the Padres. You can say it, that's just
Okay.
fine. But it's a personal thing. I know he's been great. The part is it's working. Bullying.
I feel like I
works,
should be
ladies and
respectful
gentlemen.
and not bring it up. I don't want to ruin what you're doing there and working for that. So I feel like I can't either.
It's fine, man. I get it. But if you would like to, it's open for interpretation.
At some point, I might slip into it.
Yeah, it's cool. But him and Manny Machado have been kind of carrying the Padres offense in a lot of ways this year. Machado's still leading the league in F4, if I'm not mistaken. So very diametrically opposed teams, I would say so far, is that the Padres have excellent pitching and then the Phillies have incredible offense. Although, I don't know. Let me start off by asking you this because I was about to take a slight at their starting pitching. Wheeler's been a little bit beat up. That's kind of been the vibe with him, but he was like a Cy Young sort of contender last year and even the year before to an extent. What do you think of Aaron Nola? Aaron Nola, who let me down in fantasy baseball last year. I mean, he couldn't get me a quality start to save my life. It's all I was asking for, really.
Yeah.
But I'm asking
you didn't have that in him last year. Yeah.
Is Aaron Nola actually good, or is this a guy that we're just kind of obsessed with the strikeout stuff and the pitch mix? What is kind of the vibe on him? Because I imagine it must be a little frustrating sometimes.
No, Aaron Nola is great. Aaron Nola is an elite pitcher. Here's the issue. He's not
consistent. Okay, here we go.
He's not consistent is my problem. So like he'll come out and like last year there was a point where he goes up to Citi Field and he sees the Mets and he ties Tom Seaver's record for most consecutive batters struck out. Like he's like I like to do a lot of like cross sports analogies. He's like that 3-and-D basketball player that just gets ridiculously hot sometimes. And his heat check is unbelievable. Like he'll have games where he's the best pitcher on the planet, and then you'll need him to win a series, and he'll look like he should be in AAA. So that's the biggest thing. Like his ceiling is incredibly high, but he's not consistent. Zach Wheeler, you're going to get basically the same thing from him every time. That's why he was the Cy Young runner-up in the NL last year. Guys like Ranger Suarez, who he's taken a step back based on what he did last year, but he's relatively consistent. Zach Eflin, Kyle Gibson, those guys are more like they've got a frame of reference for about how they're going to pitch. Nola's one of those guys where it's like one day he could be a Cy Young winner, and the next day he could be a guy that looks like, how is he in this rotation? And that's the biggest issue because when you want to put the ace moniker on someone, which I think rightfully has been given to Zach Wheeler on this team after what he did last year, but Aaron Nola's in that conversation when he's at his best. But when you want to put that on somebody, you expect them every time they take the mound to be that guy. And he just isn't consistent enough to this point to be that guy in my mind. So that's the biggest thing. Like you can catch him on any given day and he could look like he doesn't deserve that type of praise, but really he has that ability. So it's like, what guy are you getting any given day? That's Aaron Nola in a nutshell to me.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has the stuff, right? I mean, it's
sure.
just, you're right. The consistency, right? Like the fact that, hey, I mean, if you bought low on him in fantasy baseball this year, congrats. He's definitely probably been better than where you drafted him. He's got a 3.64 ERA right now. He has that swing and miss stuff, obviously. And what I mentioned with the pitch mix, the fact that basically of 4 pitches that he throws the equal amount of the same time. So it's just, what version are you going to get? That's right. What is bad Andy Dalton show up or good Andy Dalton showing up? Bad Baker Mayfield, all those type of guys, right? Which version is showing up? Or the Carson Wentz, right? Which year is it? Or is he just
don't bring up Carson Wentz. I've had you're bringing up nightmares
for me,
man. Yeah, I got
have to. But that's the whole question there. But you know what has always been consistent, Connor?
What's that?
The best protein bars in all the land, my friend.
They're
the best. They're the best. And I want to talk about not just the Built Bars, which are great. They've got chocolate, peanut butter, personal favorite, apple almond crisp. My mom's favorite is cherry barcia. They've got those, but they also have these little puff things. Almost comparing, like Almond Joy. They've got the big Almond Joys, and then they had the mounds. That's kind of like what Built Bar's got going on here. And they've got this new flavor, birthday cake, which basically, imagine if you were having that birthday cake frosting, but then all of a sudden you looked at the macros and you're like, oh, wow, this is only 150 calories and only 16 grams of sugar, and 16 grams of protein, I should say. That's kind of what happens when you have these birthday cake puffs, man. Go check them out. I got them. I don't know if you got them. But
bro, have I got them? Come on. Yeah, I got them. Let's go.
There's someone on the network who said
like
that their address
120 pounds soaking wet before I started eating Built Bars. No.
That's awesome, man.
No,
they're fantastic. You got to check them out. What I love about them, aside from all this stuff, right? They've got always new flavors coming out. That's what I love as well. If you guys want to go check them out, go to built.com and use that promo code LOCKED15. And you can get 15% off your order. Remember, that is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off the best Built Bars in all the land. The best protein bars, in all the land at built.com. Just want to remind everybody also, really quickly, go check out Locked On Phillies, Locked On Padres. We're free and available on all platforms. Connor, let's keep it rolling because I'm super excited for this series because we're going to be seeing some of the best players in baseball here, but I'm wondering also now about the Phillies. What I feel like, while they're a little bit better than they used to, there's definitely probably a little bit of a depth thing, right? Where Didi Gregorius, that Bryson Stott didn't necessarily turn out the way maybe Philly fans, that he could break out and be that, they're Jake Cronenworth almost per se, right? Be that prospect guy that can come up and be good immediately. What are some kind of things that the Phillies are going to be looking for in this series, do you think, or just in general? Like, who are some guys that need to step up that aren't the obvious ones, right? Because Castellanos and Schwarber and Harper and JT Realmuto, right? Who are some under the radar guys that have maybe been underperforming that need to step it up?
Yeah, no, I got you. Stott's definitely an interesting one. And Didi Gregorius on the IL right now. He may come back for this series, so he's getting right in that time frame where he could make his return. And that's the only reason Stott is back up with the Major League team. Even though 2 nights ago in LA against the Dodgers had a very nice game, couple RBIs, 3 hits, I believe, in that one. So he's just a young player who's going to go through growing pains, and that's his deal. And I haven't lost faith in him at all. If he still plays, he's certainly one of those guys that you're going to have to look at. But another one that you're taking a peek at, whoever's playing center field, whether it be Roman Quinn, if it's Matt Vierling, if it's whoever they decide to go with out there at center, having that little extra bit, because you brought it up. You know what you're getting from Castellanos. You know what you're getting for Schwarber, Harper, Hoskins, Realmuto even. And you know what? Rhys Hoskins is probably another guy because he's had a really, really slow start to the year. He's had a couple big moments. He had a grand slam against the Mariners that ended up being a difference in a game that won them that series out there in Seattle. But a lot of people are questioning Rhys Hoskins' ability with his slow start to the year. So between him and who's ever playing center field, those are the guys that are going to take you from being you look good in the series to winning a series, especially when you're playing a team like the Padres, who are a very talented team competing in a stacked NL West. You got the Giants to worry about. You got the Dodgers to worry about. So, I'm focused on those two guys. But, man, we've been all Phillies. We got to talk about Slam Diego and what the Phillies have to look out for with you guys coming in. Because, obviously, you'd like to have a slightly better start to the season, but I don't think you guys have underperformed, especially considering what's going on with Fernando Tatis and everything there. What do the Phillies have to look out for with the Padres coming into town?
Yeah, I mean, for the Phillies, one thing that's going to be really fun to watch the series is the debut of Blake Snell, who, for the most part, been kind of a miss for the Padres so far in his short tenure with the team. Last year's kind of a mess. He was getting lit up. He wasn't going long into games, but then something fun happened, and that was basically in August when he was, I say this ad nauseum on my podcast, but led the league in strikeout percentage. He focused more on his fastball, kind of abandoned that curveball and changeup stuff that he was doing, and just focused on those 2 pitches almost exclusively, and was awesome. And then they brought in Ruben Niebla, pitching coach out of Cleveland. So there's a lot of hope that Snell can really redeem what has been pretty disappointing, especially for what was supposed to be that blockbuster, awesome trade, right? The Phillies made all these moves in the offseason. The Padres were the kings of the previous offseason, just in terms of making noise. So that's the thing you're going to be watching out there. Darvish, really up and down, gives up a lot of hard stuff. He hasn't even been striking out that many batters, so he's a little bit of a concern. Mike Clevenger just coming back from Tommy John. He's made 2 starts. That'll be interesting. But some
is he
under
going
the
to
radar
have
guys,
like the ponytail stuff?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
he going to have like the pigtails for his
Yeah.
next start?
He totally changed his vibe. Mike Clevenger, a little bit of a weirdo when it comes to not necessarily the hair, but just everything. The way he tweets. I've mentioned this on the Tumblr 2010 type of font with like using like Dark Knight quotes and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay.
I kind of like that. I kind of like my pictures or my pictures of players in general. Just be a little weird. Have that like weird edge to them. That's
absolutely. I don't know what exactly we're going to get from any of the starting pitchers, honestly, for the Padres there. But I would say the other thing for Phillies fans is, in terms of like some under the radar guys, it's probably Hassan Kim. Hassan Kim is a guy who the Padres signed after being dominant in the KBO. It was kind of disappointing in his first year, right? He bat like 200, 270 on base. He wasn't doing much, but he was an elite defender. So there's at least that value. And this year in this series that just against the Braves, hit a huge home run in the game on Friday it was. And then he had 2 doubles in the Sunday game. He's not becoming, like anyone that'll make the Phillies necessarily impressed when it comes to an offensive standpoint, but just as a nice little not bench piece, but like that under the radar kind of depth guy who's going to be able to play third for you sometimes. He can play shortstop and he can play really good defense, and he's clearly gotten better with the bat. He's pulling the ball a lot, but he's turning those into fly balls, and that's resulted in doubles and more extra base hits and such. So Kim is definitely that underrated player, I think, that has been really key for the Padres, because rest of the team, their bats, oh man, it can be frustrating sometimes. Jurickson Profar, he's been fun in the outfield defensively. He's had some big hits for the team too, but I think he's still batting below 200 at the time of this recording. And then you've got guys like Luke Voit, just came back from the IL, but his power hasn't necessarily been there. Grisham, who I've gotten some flack for, he's not the Trent Grisham from 2020, right? This is actually becoming a little scary right now, where the Padres thought they really found a hidden gem, and now it's more of like, is this guy a fourth outfielder? So there's a lot of questions with a lot of bats on the Padres from guys that people probably expected to be better. Jake Cronenworth has been a little bit of in a slump to start this season. It's basically been Machado and the first baseman who must not be named, and some spot plays from Hassan Kim every now and then, right? So that's what you have to look for the Padres in terms of their kind of whole team makeup, I'd say, when it comes to their batting.
Okay. And a guy you haven't mentioned, I just want to bring this up just because of the familial ties with this one. Austin Nola, what's going on? Is there any worry that he's going to be the Nola that shines because Aaron is not going to pitch against you guys? Is he going to steal the spotlight because he gets the opportunity? I remember him being a young player a couple times that the Phillies have seen him and not really fully coming into his own in the major leagues. But it seems like he's making some waves, like slightly, to be the guy there to catch and be the predominant like starting catcher for the Padres. What have you seen from him so far this year?
Man, it stinks. They traded Ty France for this guy, which isn't like the best.
You see what Ty France is doing. Like, oh my God, he killed us in that series with Seattle.
I know he did. That's why I brought him up. Look, it's in a vacuum. It's obviously a bad trade, but I get, they needed a catcher. They didn't want to do the Francisco Mejia, Austin Hedges platoon forever. But Nola, I mean, when he was actually playing for them, for the Padres, like, he was a decent hitter when you compare him to other catchers, right? And even last year, even though he only played 56 games, 270 average, 340 on base, I'll take it. I don't care if he's not hitting balls out of the park. But this year, he's had some frustrating moments where I'm just like, I just want a little bit more from the guy, walk a little bit more, make better contact. He's been frustrating, and it doesn't look great considering how amazing Mr. Ty France has been over in Seattle. The hope here is that he can just be okay. Nola the catching has been a little bit frustrating for the Padres because they have Luis Campizano, one of their top prospects, who they keep calling up and then sending back down. And it's not like Jorge Alfaro and Austin Nola have been incredible. By the way, I'm very much look forward to when Jorge Alfaro swings at some pitch that is closer to where you and I are than it is closer to the plate. It's going to happen.
I've been there, man. I remember seeing those days when he was with the Phillies before we moved him. I've seen that.
Man, or Alfaro. I mean, he had that great Mother's Day revenge game against the Marlins, but man, he's rough sometimes. But yeah, when it comes to the catching stuff, maybe the rare family vengeance game. I don't know. I don't know about their actual family, but the rare, like, maybe that's a little bit of an error that could come from the series. Maybe he'll wake up. Maybe he'll hit against Aaron Nola. I would love to see that. I don't know if he's scheduled to pitch actually in this series.
He's not. He's
Nola?
throwing today
He's
against
not,
the Dodgers, so he's currently on the hill, or he was when I
dang,
came down here.
that would've
So
been fun.
yeah,
That would have been fun, but
he'll definitely be in attendance.
Maybe he'll want to ball out, right? Maybe he'll want to ball out
Yeah,
and such.
exactly.
That could be really fun.
I hope he doesn't, but he very well could. So that's a cool moment. Like anytime though, you could be like brothers and play against each other in Major League Baseball. That's incredible. That's always a fun storyline.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what else is fun?
What is,
Connor? You know what else is fun? When you save money in general. I'm honestly in general, not even what I'm about to talk about. Just saving money in general is awesome. But I want us to talk specifically about car stuff. I don't know anything about cars personally whatsoever, but I can tell you the folks over at Rock Auto, they've got you covered with all your car related needs and whatnot, guys. You save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Right? Like, why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. For example,
no reason.
Honda Odyssey fuel pump. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying there's no reason to do that at all.
Yeah, there's no reason. It doesn't make any sense, man. You know what I mean? For example, their Honda Odyssey fuel pump, it costs $216. Compare that to a chain store, which is $353. And you can tell what I'm talking about, guys. Family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, reliable low prices, and they have everything: new carpet, motor oil, tail lamps, whatever you need, they've got you covered. And their website is really easy to navigate for schmucks like me that know nothing about cars. So guys, go explore their website today to find a solution to your auto part needs. And when you do that, by the way, go to rockauto.com right now and write "locked on" in their "how'd you hear about us" box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
All right, so Javi, I know we've been talking
man.
this series, and we're very zoned in on what's going on the next 3 days. Well, I guess not the next 3 days as we're recording this, because they've got an off day Monday to get ready for the series. But something that I think is very interesting, that's a nice juxtaposition of our two franchises. We're going to be fighting for that same wild card spot in the National League as things calm down. Now, of course, when Tatis comes back, you might be able to make a run at the division, especially if the Dodgers stay as cool as they're going right now, and if the Giants eventually fall off. And the Phillies, who knows if they'll catch the Mets or not. But we're very much in the same spot where we're in competitive divisions where we could end up coming down to like late September, and it could be, man, I hope Javi's team loses so we can get a spot in. What is the mindset for San Diego right now? Are you guys still in the, hey, we're going to compete for the division? Or is it, man, our way in is the wild card?
It's tough. I still think it's probably wild card, because even if you're kind of, and I've said this a lot, where a lot of people pretty understandably have expected that the Giants will fall back down to earth. Because they lose Buster Posey, they lose Kevin Gausman, and you're just kind of looking at the rest of their roster and you're saying, well, you know, Brandon Belt's a year older, Brandon Crawford, do we really think he's going to be that great offensively again? But my thing is they still won 107. So even if they do take that decline is only to like 93 games. And I say only, by the way, with quotes, where it's like, that's still a pretty good team. So they're still going to be competitive. For them to finish below 500, I mean, I actually really need to go. I would have to look back for a while. The last time a team went from winning that, like a 20-game drop off, you know what I'm saying? That would be pretty nuts. Obviously, you have your Oakland A's because they just trade everybody. That's what the Oakland A's do every year. But when it comes to teams that don't necessarily do that and they're still trying to be competitive, that's a hard sell for me. So I think they're probably still aiming for the wild card. And fans are like, yeah, I mean, let's kind of aim for that. There's an extra spot anyway. They can do it. And I think the other mindset, really wish we were in the NL Central, because the NL Central is like, yeah, right. We're not going to do anything in the offseason. We're not going to make any moves. Hey, we're the Milwaukee Brewers. We haven't been to the World Series since the late 80s. This is the most stacked free agent class. No. We're actually not going to do anything. We're just going to bring on your old friend, Andrew McCutchen, and my old friend, Hunter Renfroe. But like, really? That's all we're doing? Yep, because we're going to keep selling our fans on that for some reason having the 20th best payroll despite having a three-headed hydra of a rotation and winning 95 games. It's actually better that we don't do anything. Anyway, listeners to my show know that I hate the Brewers this year. I have a team every year that I hate for not trying, and this year it's the Brewers.
Okay, so it's not like the Reds or the A's? Come on.
Oh, no. It's still those teams, but I will say it's new this year because the Brewers, it's like, man.
Yeah, you have a
What are you
Cy
doing?
Young winner. You also have
Yeah.
Brandon Woodruff. You have an
Mhm.
unbelievable, like you still have Josh Hader in the bullpen like that. Yeah.
And what I will say is, up to the Brewers being in the last time was like late 80s, the Rays have at least been in like the ALCS, the World Series multiple times. So I don't give them a full break, but it's like, hey, Brewers, you guys haven't even made it that far in a while. Why is your whole thing stop right now? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's another vibe. Maybe just for me, for Padres fans, where it's like, really wish we were in the Central, because then I could absolutely see them coming out on top. And honestly, with the Phillies, I could see that as well, because with teams like the Braves and with teams especially like the Mets, a really tough division to win for sure.
No, I totally get that. And the other thing that I
Mhm.
want to talk to you about is kind of expectations, right? So we're in a middle of we're heading into our 11th year
Mhm.
straight without playoffs, a full 10-year
Yeah.
playoff drought here in Philadelphia. And I understand it hasn't been that long for San Diego, but you guys haven't been to the World Series since 1998. And that
Yeah, man.
was obviously a loss in that World Series. What's the feeling of the fan base? Because obviously West Coast versus East Coast is very different. The temperament of the fan base can be different. Is there like a pressure on this team? Or is it just like, oh, okay, they've done something. They've got Machado. They've got a strong starting rotation. They've made some moves. Let's see what happens. Or is there like a real pressure on this team to compete right now?
I think there is a little bit of a pressure. I push back against the idea that they are an ultimate deadlocked early 2000s Diamondbacks. We're all in for this year type of thing. I do disagree with that. Machado's still pretty young, but by comparison, he's still 29. You have Tatis, you have all these guys, but they're clearly in a little bit of a win now, in the sense that, yeah, fans want something. I mean, when you have like a top 5 payroll, you can't be going out here and doing all this stuff where you're just a below 500 team like they were
Right.
last year, right? You can't have that. And the other thing is, with the amount of stuff they've traded, right? We've already talked about the Ty France thing, but with the Grisham trade, with Lauer and Urias, and then with Snell, with trading away Patino, and just overall trading so much to get guys that will help you out now instead of waiting, there is an expectation that we don't want to just be okay, right? We don't want to just be what's a good example of an okay team, like a Guardians, right? Or like
The Minnesota Twins.
a Minnesota Twins or something like that, right? Where
Yeah.
you're hopeful that you can go pretty far, but it's not the end of the world. There's definitely a sense of urgency. There's definitely been frustration, especially with a variety of things, with trades not working out, and with the Max Scherzer fiasco, and with Fernando Tatis Jr., obviously, with him saying which one in response to a motorcycle accident,
That's
right?
not great.
Yeah, it's not great, man. So I'd say they're not. I don't think that their time to win is as win now as other people have made it out to be. But in terms of wanting to be competitive, and yes, this is not a team where it's like, yeah, we hope we're pretty good this year, man. That'll be fun. No, this is a team that's trying to win right now and at least be competitive and be a team that can be exciting. Because there was a reason why everyone talked about them after 2020. They were a thrill to watch, and they had all the momentum. I mean, Tom Verducci is writing about how Dodgers Padres could be the next Yankees Red Sox. They want to see a little bit of something instead of just a fluky 2020 on their
Yeah.
resume.
No, I totally get that. So it's not like they have to win the World Series now, but you're also in a spot where it's like they should compete. And whatever they
Mhm.
do is a bonus because that window's still big. That's kind of what I'm feeling with Bryce Harper and the Phillies. Like the
Mhm.
pressure here is it's just slightly different from the fan base because of the East Coast. Like every game is live or
Yeah.
die because of the
Yeah.
football culture in Philadelphia. Like you're aware how
Mhm.
Philadelphia fans are and everything like that, and the stigma
Yeah.
that comes with it. So it's very similar teams with very different fan bases, I feel like, and that's always really interesting. And it should make for what should be a really fun 3-game series coming up here in Philadelphia. Man, I'm really excited about this one because if all else, if the Phillies lose the series, if the Padres lose the series, we're both going to see some really, really good baseball from both
Yeah.
sides over the next
Mhm.
couple of days.
Yeah, these aren't boring teams, certainly. Like that's one good thing for sure. This isn't a Pirates versus, Royals type of matchup. Like at the minimum,
Right.
we're going to see some huge home runs probably, especially from your team, considering that, Padres guys are a little bit unproven in some ways with a Darvish, with a Clevenger, and with a Blake Snell. It should be a lot of fun. We might get some game winners and whatnot. I'm really excited. They didn't play the Phillies last year. I don't think they played the Phillies. Or no, yeah, they did. They played the Phillies
Yeah,
last year.
yeah,
Of
we
course,
got you
they
guys.
had to have played them once. And I think they won that series, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm really curious to see how it all pans out. I think they played like over the July 4th weekend or something like that, actually, now I think about it.
I'm trying to remember. The
So
last season was such a blur with how the Phillies collapsed and everything, man. The only thing I remember is Bryce Harper was good and Zach Wheeler was good.
Hey, I can relate on the collapse thing. Trust me, it was a nightmare over here as well. But yeah, Connor, do you have any other last questions, last takes, last things you want to tell the good people of Locked On Padres and Locked On Phillies for this very special and fun crossover?
Yeah, of course. The one last thing, just for an overview about the Phillies, if you're not aware, I mean, this team is one of the hottest offensive teams in baseball. So if you're looking something for, as a Padres fan coming into this, what do you have to be worried about with the Phillies? Bryce Harper is one of the hottest hitters on the planet. This offense has just demolished one of the best, if not the best, rotations in baseball with the Dodgers, and they're coming in really hot. So there's two camps, right? Either they're going to stay hot and you're running into a really hot team, or they're due for one of those quiet series because they've been hitting the ball so well. But it's just, if you're keeping an eye on anything, if you're a Padres fan, and if you're catching the Phillies for the first time this year, because we're a whole country apart, we're on the opposite coasts. Well, that's the calling card of this team right now, is they're going to score runs. They're going to try and put up high numbers, and the defense is just going to do whatever. So that's my last takeaway, is just the offense is the way the Phillies are going to win this series if they do indeed end up doing so.
Yeah, and Padres is going to be hopefully some clutch hitting and hopefully great starting pitching. Connor, this has been a lot of fun. Let me just tell everybody, go check them out. Go check out Locked On Phillies, YouTube and Twitters. What's your Twitter at? It's at Connor Thomas 975. Why 975? Is that an area code?
I work for 97.5 The Fanatic, so it's a sports talk radio station in Philadelphia. So I do that, and then I do some local TV on our NBC Sports affiliate here in Philadelphia. So yeah, that's just a
awesome stuff
over there.
Love that. Congratulations on that. Everybody can follow Locked On Padres on YouTube as well, at @LO_Padres, and then at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. And with that being said, everybody stay faithful. And of course, stay faithful always, my very faithful homies. Take care. And Connor, this was a blast.
It was so much fun. Man, that was a fun crossover episode. A lot of good stuff in there about expectations, the series upcoming, what could happen over the course of the season for each of these teams. A fun crossover with Javi and Locked On Padres. Make sure you check out Locked On Padres. And also thank you, as always, for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, Sully, he's awesome. He knows baseball inside and out. Go ahead and check out everything he does over on Locked On MLB. It's a great listen. Make sure that's your second listen every day after you get done, of course, with Locked On Phillies. That's all I've got for you today. It's going to be a great series between the Padres and the Phillies. We'll keep you updated on everything going on, and you can check out my reaction to Game 1 as it comes out tomorrow when we put out our next episode. Thanks again for listening. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing, following, all of that good stuff. But that's all I've got for you today for this edition of Locked On Phillies.